Hi everyone, welcome back to MSCR Makes. I'm Miss Julia and today we're going to be doing watercolors with leaves. For this project you will need some water, some paper, your watercolors. Remember, if you don't have watercolors, you can also use food coloring and some small dishes and mix the food coloring with a little bit of water. You'll want your paintbrush, and you'll want to grab some leaves or other flat materials from outside. Here's a few that I found. It doesn't really matter what things that you find, you just want them to be able to lay kind of flat on the paper. You could try lots of different things, like flowers or anything else like that too. You can go ahead and pause the video here and go gather your supplies. Now that you've had a chance to gather your supplies, I'm going to move some things out of the way. So the first thing you're going to want to do is lay down some color on your paper. To do this, you'll want to make sure that you have a nice saturated color, or one that has a lot of your watercolor or your food coloring in it. So you'll want to dip your brush and get it a little wet, and go ahead and make sure to rub into your watercolor a lot. And then put down some color. You can do it however you would like. Use either one color or lots of different ones. But you'll want to make sure that your paper is pretty wet. See how you can see my paper is shiny here? That means it's pretty wet in that area. And you'll want to make sure that you have a lot of color built up. So make sure to either use a lot of food coloring for a little bit of water, or to make sure to rub onto your watercolors a lot. And make sure that your paper is nice and wet too. This is going to help make the prints. So I'll start with just this area. So what you'll do is, once your paper is nice and wet and has a lot of watercolor on it, you'll lay your leaves or other materials down into the watercolor. You can see on mine how right around the edges of this leaf, it's a little bit lighter. See how the watercolor is also pooling or building up right here by this bit? That's what you want to see. That's how you know you have enough watercolor on your paper and the prints are going to work. Another thing you can do is, after you've laid down your leaves or other materials that you've found, you can go back through and add in a little bit more watercolor to help it pool up around your leaves even better. So if you're not sure if you have enough, you can go ahead and add some more to help your leaves make an even better impression. And it's okay if you get some on the other side of your leaf. You'll end up taking them off anyways. So this is what mine looks like right now while it's in progress. It's still very wet, and you want to wait for it to dry before you remove any of the leaves. I waited overnight and I did another example, but one tip for you is, you'll know that your leaves are dry enough to remove if they move by themselves. So this, you can tell, is still very wet because of how shiny all of the areas of my paint are. But some of the areas, like here, are already starting to dry. But that might not mean that the leaves and everything is dry enough to take off yet. How you can test it is if you take your paper and gently shake it around. If the leaves move, that means that it should be dry enough if you're getting impatient. Otherwise, you can just wait overnight and try. See, here is a leaf on a dry spot of my paper, Do you see how this leaf moves around? But once it touches the wet, it doesn't move as much. And these leaves didn't move at all. That's how I can tell if my paper has dried enough. But I'll show you the example that I did yesterday. I waited for this one to dry overnight, and you can see where I put my leaves. I really like how this area turned out. You can see how the watercolor pooled where the leaf was. It was one that looked kind of like this. So it was on there, and when you move it and all of the watercolor is dry, you can see the impression it leaves. Well, I hope you find lots of fun things to make watercolor impressions with your leaves, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!